Today, we bring you a deeply significant development from Caracas that is shaping the already fraught relationship between Venezuela and the United States. In a televised address carried live by state broadcaster VTV and later rebroadcast by AFP, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro delivered one of his strongest denunciations yet of Washington's recent military actions in the Caribbean. His words, sharp and unyielding, portrayed the latest U.S. operation not as a routine counter-narcotics mission, as the Pentagon described it, but as what he called an armed aggression aimed at imposing regime change to seize Venezuela's oil, gas, gold, and all its natural resources. The remarks came just hours after U.S. officials announced a precision strike against a vessel off the Venezuelan coast that they alleged was being used by narcotics traffickers. The attack reportedly killed 4 people and has escalated the already simmering tensions between Washington and Caracas. For the Maduro government, however, the strike represents more than just another clash in the long-running confrontation over drug trafficking. In his words, it is evidence of a broader design to undermine Venezuela's sovereignty and strip the country of control over its natural wealth. In the address broadcast from the presidential palace in Caracas, Maduro spoke directly to the American people as well as to his own citizens. He said, "The American people are well aware that what is being plotted against Venezuela is an armed aggression aimed at imposing regime change, installing puppet governments, and seizing its oil, gas, gold, and all its natural resources." The president's use of that phrase, armed aggression, underscored his effort to frame the strike not as a law enforcement action, but as a deliberate act of hostility by a foreign power. He went on to declare with defiance, Venezuela has the right to peace, to sovereignty, to its own existence, and no empire in the world can take that away from it. These words, carrying echoes of the country's long history of resisting outside influence, were meant to rally Venezuelans around a narrative of self-defense and national dignity. In the most dramatic part of his speech, Maduro hinted at the possibility of escalating resistance. He warned that if the situation demanded it, Venezuela's people would be prepared to take up arms. If it proves necessary, he said, this people will move from unarmed forms of struggle to an armed struggle for peace, for sovereignty, and for the right to exist. No more colonialism, no more neocolonialism, no more dispossession, and no more supremacism. This call to be ready for what he described as an armed struggle for peace resonated with his supporters and raised alarm among his critics and international observers alike. The tone of Maduro's remarks reflects the growing unease in Caracas about what it perceives as the expanding reach of U.S. military operations in the region. Washington's stated goal, combating transnational narcotics trafficking, has been a point of contention for years, with Venezuelan officials insisting that such actions often mask deeper political motives. The latest strike, coming so close to Venezuelan shores and resulting in fatalities, has added fuel to that accusation. For many Venezuelans, the president's speech was not just another defiant address. It was seen as a rallying cry at a time of economic hardship, international sanctions, and political isolation. Images broadcast on state television showed Maduro standing before the national flag, his tone firm but measured, as he invoked not only Venezuela's sovereignty, but also a sense of historical resistance against foreign domination. The speech evoked the memory of past interventions in Latin America and sought to portray the current moment as part of that larger historical struggle. In the days leading up to this incident, relations between Caracas and Washington had shown no sign of improvement. U.S. sanctions remain in place, targeting key sectors of Venezuela's economy, including its vital oil industry. Humanitarian groups have warned that the economic pressure, combined with political isolation, is contributing to worsening living conditions for ordinary Venezuelans. Against this backdrop, the military strike and the death of 4 people at sea have become a flashpoint. Analysts say Maduro's speech served several purposes. Domestically, it reinforced his narrative that Venezuela is under siege from foreign powers and that unity and resistance are necessary. Internationally, it was a message to allies and adversaries alike that Venezuela would not be intimidated. By addressing the American people directly, something he has done in previous moments of crisis, he attempted to bypass the U.S. government and appeal to public opinion in the United States, casting the conflict as one between ordinary people and what he called imperial ambitions. The president's statement also comes at a time when Venezuela's military readiness and internal stability are under scrutiny. In recent years, the government has faced not only external pressure, but also domestic unrest and attempts by opposition groups to challenge its authority. By framing the latest confrontation as a matter of national survival, Maduro appears intent on consolidating support among both his political base and the armed forces. International reaction to the incident and Maduro's speech has been mixed. Some governments in the region expressed concern about the escalation of military actions in Caribbean waters, warning that it risks destabilizing an already fragile region. Human rights organizations have called for transparent investigations into the circumstances of the strike and the deaths it caused. Washington, meanwhile, has stood by its claim that the operation targeted a legitimate threat, describing the vessel as part of a narcotics trafficking network that endangers U.S. and regional security. As the fallout from the incident continues, the streets of Caracas have seen a mixture of demonstrations, some in support of the president's tough stance, others demanding accountability and a more pragmatic approach to foreign relations. The country's state-run television channels have replayed key moments from Maduro's address, emphasizing his call for sovereignty and peace, while private and opposition-leaning media outlets have focused on the potential dangers of militarized rhetoric. What makes this moment particularly sensitive is that it comes as Venezuela struggles to stabilize its economy and reassert its place in regional diplomacy. Any further escalation, analysts warn, could deepen the country's isolation and prolong its economic woes. Yet Maduro's words suggest that he views the stakes as existential and that compromise with Washington under such circumstances is unlikely. Throughout his speech, the president returned to themes of dignity, independence, and resistance. He depicted Venezuela not as an isolated adversary, but as part of a broader struggle against what he called the return of colonialism and supremacism. This framing is not new in his political discourse, but has gained renewed urgency in the face of the latest military confrontation. For the international community, the challenge now is to prevent the situation from spiraling into open conflict. Diplomats from neighbouring countries are urging restraint on both sides, emphasising dialogue over confrontation. The United Nations has expressed concern about the rising tensions and called for respect for international law and the sovereignty of all nations involved. In Caracas, meanwhile, the government continues to project defiance. State television commentators have described the U.S. operation as proof of Washington's unwillingness to accept Venezuela's independence. Military parades and public ceremonies have featured speeches reaffirming the country's readiness to defend itself, echoing Maduro's declaration that the people will do whatever it takes to protect their right to peace and existence. As this crisis unfolds, one thing is clear: the incident at sea and the president's fiery response have brought to the forefront the unresolved tensions between Venezuela and the United States. For ordinary Venezuelans, the stakes are immediate and tangible, ranging from the risk of further conflict to the impact on their already strained economy. For the broader region, it is a reminder that the Caribbean remains a sensitive theatre where geopolitical rivalries can quickly escalate. In the days ahead, the world will be watching to see whether the situation moves toward confrontation or dialogue. The deaths of 4 people in the U.S. strike have already cast a long shadow over prospects for any easing of hostilities. Maduro's vow that his people are prepared to shift from unarmed to armed struggle if necessary suggests that the rhetoric of defiance is unlikely to soften soon. Tonight's developments underscore how fragile peace remains in this part of the world, where historical grievances, economic challenges, and strategic rivalries intersect. As the Venezuelan president framed it, the conflict is not only about territory or politics, but about the right of a nation to determine its own future and to protect its resources from what he described as external predation. For the people of Venezuela, the coming weeks may prove decisive. Will the government's defiant stance strengthen national unity, or will it lead to further isolation and hardship? Will Washington continue to pursue aggressive counter-narcotics operations near Venezuelan waters, or will international mediation succeed in opening a path to de-escalation? These questions remain unanswered, but the urgency of finding solutions grows with each passing day. From the presidential palace to the streets of Caracas, from the Caribbean waters where the strike occurred to the halls of international diplomacy, the crisis has entered a new and unpredictable phase. President Maduro's declaration of readiness for armed resistance has set the tone for the days ahead, one of defiance, resistance, and a refusal to accept what he calls foreign imposition. This is the situation as it stands tonight, volatile, consequential, and demanding the attention of the international community. The next moves by both Caracas and Washington could determine not only the future of their bilateral relations, but also the stability of the region as a whole.